Thanks, Dean, and welcome everyone to today's session. I was asked to present today on this topic, and it is a huge topic. For those of you on the line working in HR, I know that this will be a focus for you as you look to plan and build your businesses into the future. So as I said, look, thank you everyone. I hope today that I can share some insights from the research that we've commissioned at SAP with Oxford Economics, but also to share with you a bit about our story and how we've transformed and how we are transforming the HR function to help our company build out a sustainable business into the future. We are living in a world of change. Questions on my mind are, how do we lead into the future and help our business? How do we remain relevant to our customers? And how do we importantly, remain relevant to our key talent in the organisation? In the world of HR and across the business, we see that we're very much focused on the day-to-day. We're delivering to deadlines, we're delivering to sales quarter ends, driving business results. And I think that most of you would agree that we spend much of our time in the now, and we get very little opportunity to sort of lift our heads up above the water and to out of the noise and to think about how do we build out a longer term strategy to ensure that we're building the business of the future and that we don't become irrelevant to our customers and to our employees. So if there are any doubts about change, I just wanted to share with you the extent of some of the change that we're all going through, both in business and in our lives. There are going to be 150 million people born this year into what is now a data economy. China will soon become the #1 English-speaking country in the world. Today's learners will have 10 to 14 jobs by the time they're 38. 1 in 4 workers has been employed for less than 4 years. And the top 10 jobs now didn't exist 10 years ago. And we're preparing our students, we're sending our students to university for jobs that really haven't even been invented yet. In terms of technology, there will be 50 million devices connected to the internet by 2020. And this year there'll be 3.5 zettabytes, and I had to look up zettabytes of unique information that will be created worldwide this year. And to give you some idea of what that means, what it looks like, that is more information than has been created in the last 5,000 years, this year alone. And 100 billion searches on Google every day. So all of these things, short facts, they're all impacting the way that we will live. They're impacting the way we'll run our businesses, impacting the way that our customers will buy, and impacting the way that our employees or people in the market will be looking, what they'll be looking for in terms of jobs. So with all of that change, we did commission a survey with Oxford Economics. And we're happy to share the detail of Workforce 2020 with you. We'll make that available to you. But we did this because there is so much change, and in order for us to plan out our business and the focus areas, we really wanted to understand what are the priorities of executives and what are employees looking for in employers. So we did surveys of 2,500 or 2,700 executives and also employees, 50% of whom were millennials, and we'll come back to millennials later in the session. And we did this survey across 27 countries. There are specifics for each of those countries available to you for those of you working in multinationals. And as I said, we'll make that available to you in more detail. Today, I will reference a number of statistics and insights from that survey, so apologies, I will be looking at my notes for those numbers. But some really interesting insights for business leaders and for us as HR leaders and practitioners as we help the business into the future. So what are some of the things that are keeping executives up at night? And I'm sure that these are going to resonate with many of you. Digitisation and the Internet of Things. Our businesses are changing, our lives are changing as we are in the data economy, and everything is being transformed by technology. We can see the globalisation of labour across the globe. The boundaries between countries are disappearing as we mobilise talent across the globe. Organisation boundaries are blurring. The way that we structure our organisations is very much changing. Hierarchies are being removed, and we can see that networks and network leadership is becoming much more prevalent in how we operate inside our businesses. We'll have 4 generations in the workforce in the coming years. The millennials, baby boomers, Gen Xers, across the workforce, ageing workforce moving out as the millennials continue to come in. How do we collaborate? How do we innovate? How do we ensure that all of those demographics are working effectively and to optimise our business performance? As I said, changing work models, the way that we work will change, and I'll share more about that with you in a moment. Consumer expectations, our customers' expectations are changing, so how do we address those needs? And our customers' customers are expecting different things as well. So how do we help our customers with their business strategy so that they're optimising their business performance and delivering to their customers? And leadership and talent, because close to our hearts. We'll come back to that in a lot more detail when I talk about SAP's HR transformation journey. All of these things, and not only these things, are keeping executives up at night. These are forefront of their minds, and certainly my mind as a HR director, as we look to help the executive build out a sustainable future business. So what are some of those converging forces? Today I'll take you through some of the Workforce 2020 research. I'm also going to reference a recent PwC survey as well, and more than happy to make that available to you with the materials after the call. 44% of CEOs believe that the economy will improve, so that's great. So we're seeing hopefully an uplift in the economy over the next year or two. CEOs are, however, saying that the availability of skills, availability of talent is a very serious concern. 63% of them expressing that concern. Another interesting fact is that from the research is that leadership trust is not as high as we need it to be. CEOs are reporting that our employees are not indicating a high level of employee trust in the organisation. And our CEOs, 93% of them are recognising the need to change their strategy in attracting and retaining talent. So we will come back to that. Regulation also hampering our ability to attract and retain talent. Different legislation across the globe, particularly if we're looking to mobilise and globalise our workforce, some of those regulations will need to change. So what does that all mean in terms of how we manage as a HR function, how we facilitate the business, how we integrate the people strategy into the business strategy? Well, our CEOs, our executives are saying now that they believe that only 34% believe that HR is ready to support the business transformation, that we have the tools, that we're equipped with what we need to help the business move forward into the future, to build out that capability, to build out that future strategy that will make us a sustainable business. So interesting that we have a lot more work to do in terms of the influence and integrating our function and our strategies into the business strategy. So companies are not prepared. We certainly have more work to do around millennials. Our research indicated that we've got to spend a lot more time working through how we address the different demographics in the workplace, and spending more time on focusing on the millennials, who will become 70% of the workforce over the coming years. In terms of how HR is, can, I guess, consider how to facilitate the business strategy more effectively moving forward, we can see that the C-suite executives are saying that we're not at the table and having enough of a voice in the decisions moving forward. So how do we get a seat at the table and influence and really help our CEOs and our executive teams make the right decisions moving forward? Unfortunately, they also say that we're not consulted enough, so we really do need to take that seat at the table, and we really do need to demonstrate the value as a HR function that we can bring to the business beyond people, so really becoming very embedded in the business and the business strategy that extends beyond advising on people initiatives. So our survey shows that, you know, we're not capitalising on the changes that are happening, that we are not prepared to lead a global workforce, that at the moment we're relying on traditional work models and full-time staff, where the research tells us that we're really moving to much more of a contingent workforce moving forward. And interestingly, the 34% CEO said that top leadership considers workforce development a driver for competitive advantage. It needs to be, that should be a lot higher. And that's reflected in some other research in the survey that shows that only 31% of executives agree that leaders are prepared to lead the workforce of the future. Only 31% of executives believe that their leadership is prepared. 34% of employees believe that their company is equipped to lead the company to success. So 34% of employees, that's 66% that don't believe that they're equipped to lead the business into the future. And 38% of executives agree that further expansion plans for growth are limited unless we have the right leadership in place. So the research is telling us that there are a lot of challenges moving forward. The world is changing and we're not prepared. So there's a big gap for us in how we're going to build out the businesses, remain competitive with our customers and remain relevant for employees in a competing war for talent. So what is the looming talent crisis? So let me take you through just a few points around the new face of work, insight gap and slow progress. So there is a new face of work, and I've taken you through some of those details, and I'll certainly share SAP's journey in a moment about what we're doing. But the nature of employment is changing. It is transforming. The composition of the labour pool is changing. We have the globalisation of the workforce. We have the millennial generation, 4 generations under one roof. Okay, we have an immensely diverse workforce. The insight gap is where we have a gap between where we need to be and I guess where we are and where we need to be in the future. We're not seeing the level of progress. So in SAP, what we've realised is that we didn't have the tools to get the job done in HR. So we didn't have insights into our talent. We didn't have insights into things like why our people were leaving, what are the various demographics across our organisation, how do we find talent for key roles into the future, and all of these things were done very manually. And of course, what this means is it's not a HR problem; it's an executive problem. It's a business problem. It's a problem for the CEO and the executive team. So we didn't have visibility to what was happening in our own organisation. And of course that's resulted in slow progress. Even with all of the shifts and challenges in the market, we were not making significant progress to build out our talent management, to build out our leadership capability. So we took the stance that we were going to address this issue in SAP, the challenges, to build out a sustainable business and to ensure that we remain relevant for our customers and that we remain relevant for our employees. So in summary, the new face of 2020, the workforce in 2020, 4 generations under one roof. You know, we have a much more connected and highly savvy workforce, a much more demanding demographic. As I said, 70% of the workforce will be millennials by 2025. Those employees will be ambitious, youthful, filled with passion and with purpose. The millennials are a major force in the workforce right now and will continue to be. And they will transform the demands in the workplace, and we need to be ready to meet those demands. They are the talent of the future. They are the leaders of the future who will help us to build out a sustainable business, a successful business into the future. Certainly, CEOs do see millennials as very important to the organisation moving forward, a good thing. However, while they see millennials as critical to the future of the business and the business strategy, only 27% say that we're giving attention to their particular needs. So that suggests that we do have more work to do on our people strategies in the organisation to ensure that we're meeting the needs and we're going to remain relevant and competitive for the key talent in the market. Skills are now currency. We need to ensure that we build learning organisations and that our employees are ongoing learners. Part of the work that we've done in SAP addresses this particular challenge because we need to remain relevant. All employees' skill sets need to remain relevant. As I talked about before, we're seeing an increase, the research indicates, and certainly in SAP, we are seeing an increase in intermittent workers, contract workers. And of course, there's an expectation now from our customers and from our employees that we live in an anywhere, anytime world. We can work anywhere, anytime. We have devices. We're mobile, we're flexible workforces, and so those are demands of our millennials, of our workforce, and they will, if not already, become demands of our customers. So the call to action around 5 key areas, and I'd ask you to consider these 5 areas as you look at the Workforce 2020 research, as you think about helping your executive team to build out a sustainable strategy, business strategy into the future. Things to consider for you. We have new generations, 4 generations under one roof, new work models. How do we better understand those millennials? They are the workforce of the future. How do we engage employees and gain that loyalty of employees when actually the research and the demographic would suggest that that's going to be a concern, it's going to be diminished? How do we build out the leadership of the future? It's a big gap, one I'll talk about in a moment with our SAP journey. And continuous learning, how do we address those skills gaps? Skills, as I talked about, are going to be key moving forward. So continuous learning across the organisation is going to be critical. So fostering that environment in the organisation will be key to business success. So those are the 5 calls to action. Now I wanted to share with you, and I'll track through, I think I'm probably lacking with time. I did want to share with you our transformation journey. It's a really interesting story, and I came into SAP 3.5 years ago, and we were already on this journey, but I've been part of the last 3.5 years, and it's been fascinating from a HR perspective going through you know, this journey of changing the way that we operate in HR, changing how the business perceive us, and changing the value that we bring to the business. So really quickly, a snapshot of the SAP business. We've been in business for 42 years. We have 65.5 or more now with 5 acquisitions, as you can see, in 5 years around the world. 250,000 plus customers across 180 countries, and we're over 16 billion in annual revenue. So what were some of the challenges that we were facing? Well, certainly we were unable to see all of the talent across our organisation. We very much operated in silos, in subsidiaries across the globe. So we needed to very much move from a country or a regional focus to having a full global picture of our talent globally, particularly if we're to mobilise that talent across the globe. So we didn't have that end-to-end kind of talent management view or processes in place. So what we've embarked upon with the business is addressing the needs, addressing those challenges that I've just spoken about and the calls to action. And we drew this down into 4 key areas. If we're going to be successful, rethinking HR strategies is critical. And when I talk about HR strategy, I talk about HR strategy as an integral part of business strategy, not a standalone separate strategy from the business strategy, but this is part of the business strategy. How do we expand markets? And therefore, what does the talent look like, and how do we find that right talent? We've just talked about the diverse workforce, the multi-generations. It's a mobilised global workforce. How do we engage that workforce? It's going to be very different from the workforce of 20 years ago and the workforce of now. How do we ensure that we understand what that looks like and plan and measure? And then also, as we do globalise, how do we ensure that we understand the legal requirements and that we remain compliant across the globe? All important questions for HR practitioners, you know, as we start to transfer and mobilise our talent across the globe. So we built a really simple strategy. We wanted to grow the business, and so our focus was very much on growing from within. So how do we grow our talent? How do we ensure that we're building out a sustainable business, bringing in early talent and diversifying our workforce? And how do we accelerate that talent development and help them to become the leaders of the future? Simplification was key. We want a lean, agile organisation, not hierarchical structures that are difficult to navigate. We've built virtual organisations, teams. Networking and collaboration is very much part of how we operate. And we need to have simple processes that work effectively across the organisation, streamlined, elimination of obstructions that take people's time needlessly. And we need to understand what's happening in our organisation through real-time analytics, which certainly in HR is becoming integral to how we view our people across the organisation and get insights into people across the organisation. And leadership, very key. So what is our leadership DNA? We've had to formulate that. We've implemented a global leadership curriculum, and we have an end-to-end talent management strategy. So very simple. So everything we do across the HR organisation to help the business be successful into the future all hangs off these 3 key areas of grow, simplify and lead. And I'm, by the way, more than happy to share a level of detail with you at any future time. Today is very much not a lot of detail, high level, but if you'd like to understand more about how we execute it, I'm more than happy to do that. So very quickly, how have we transformed HR? This gives you a picture of what we looked like previously, and I'm sure you're looking at it and seeing some similarities. Transactional work, it's all very reactive. 80% of our work was very much transactional, operational, processes very siloed. We were doing a lot of customisation. There's very high touch HR business partner model, transactional service centres, very complex, and we're activity based. So we've transformed, and we're certainly nowhere when we've transformed from this now to an organisation where we have manager self-service and employee self-service in place. So a lot of the transactional activities are actually performed by employees and managers on the spot using our technology and our processes. They are end-to-end integrated processes based on our employee life cycle. HR business partners are now able to be much more strategic. I'll share more about the model with you in a moment, and they're expected to be strategic and add that value to the business. And we're looking at, we've implemented best-in-class leadership development. So we have global curriculums that address leadership development. We're creating consistency across our leadership principles, how we lead, and what's expected of leaders, how they're measured in their roles. So we've transformed from activity to impact. We have an impact on business outcomes, and I'll share more with you on that now. So how have we transformed? Well, again, we keep everything very simple. We're trying to take complexity out of the business and everything that we do. Taking complexity out means that our resources, our people, have more time to focus on our customers and more time to focus on helping them to build out their careers. So we've shifted to a model that I guess has three pillars. We have the HR business partner pillar, which is our HR business partners offering strategic value to the business, very closely partnering with our executives. We have a global service delivery centre or function, which operates from everything from our transactional work, our day-to-day queries. We have a hotline, we have a ticket system, we have centralised shared services who deal with those very transactional, operational types of activities. And then in the global service delivery, we've further expanded that to now having a level of HR consultant who provide advice to managers as well. So we've expanded that out to the delivery to extend to manager advice and providing them with information and counsel. So the HR business partners are really operating only at the top end of the business, the strategic end. And then we have our think tanks. So centres of excellence are building out our leadership programs, our compensation strategies, everything that's really one of the centres of excellence, one of the specialist areas. It forms part of our think tank. They build, and the HR business partners and the global service delivery deliver on those solutions. So how have we done that? Technology's played a really key role. Without the technology that we have in place, we would not have transformed to where we are now. It would not be possible for us to operate in the way that we operate in HR now. Technology has facilitated process improvements, streamlining, self-service with managers and employees, making it far more simple for HR certainly to operate, but it's all about business outcomes. We're not here to simplify the work of HR. We're here to deliver to business outcomes and to help our leaders in their roles. And certainly technology has enabled some of those outcomes and also allowed business leaders the information, the insights and the simplicity of using some of our technology to act on their people activities. So what does that look like in SAP? We've implemented our own technology, so we've been our own guinea pig, our pilot, and implemented our own technology following the acquisition of SuccessMap about 3.5 years ago. And I'd used SuccessFactors previously and was pleased when that was announced, that acquisition, because I knew that the journey ahead was going to be a good one in terms of HR technology. So we've taken a very phased approach. We needed to make sure that the business could absorb what we were delivering. So we wanted to make sure that that phased approach was taken over time. Over the last 3 years, we've implemented almost all of the modules in SuccessFactors. That's delivered value not only to HR in terms of streamlining our processes and helping us to transform to where we are today and operating much more strategically with a level of operational excellence on the transactional piece, but it's helped to deliver outcomes. So with the technology, we can deliver insights to the business. Managers can access their information and gain insights about their people anywhere, anytime. And that's without necessarily having to pick up the phone to HR. So our solution that we've implemented internally has delivered value both to HR as a function, but to employees, because they have one place that they go to for all of their information, their development, their career plan, their compensation, everything all in one place. And it's provided value to managers because not only do they do the same and they can act on some of those things around their people in one place, but they can do this anytime, anywhere, and make business decisions using this information. So I think hopefully you can, you've seen a bit about the HR journey that we're on in SAP, that we've looked at what the challenges are in the workforce, and we've built out some strategies and plans to ensure that we build a sustainable, a successful business into the future, one that makes us or continues to keep us relevant with our customers, and one that will hopefully maintain relevance with our employees as well, because very much of our focus is not just on the attraction of talent and developing our talent, but we want to retain our key talent and those millennials coming into the workforce, as we see our talent as the leaders of the future. So with that, I'll hand over to Shay Lambert to share a little bit more about the journey that he's been taking some of his customers on as they've worked through similar transformations and using technology to underpin that. So thanks, Shay. Over to you.
So thanks for that, Lisa. My brief for the day, we're here at Soltius. We work with about 80 customers in New Zealand, including in the HR space with the SuccessFactors suite of products. So we've seen a lot of different ways that businesses are approaching this. I think Lisa's framed it really well in terms of what the high-level trends are. So my brief for today is really to get down to that pointy end of you as HR leaders, you understand the issues and now you need to do something about it and take your business on that journey. So as Lisa pointed out, and thankfully I noticed that my stats more or less match up with hers, this is something that's keeping CEOs awake at night. Talent shortages, and in New Zealand, and I'm sure Australia would experience very similar results. In New Zealand, employers are struggling to fill jobs, and they're reporting at around the same level, 58% in fact, saying that that is actually impacting on their ability to serve their customer needs. So what does that mean for you as HR leaders? That means that you need to address some of these concerns, but addressing them requires you to take an approach that is actually aligned with the business strategy. As Lisa pointed out, hers within SAP was very much driven from that business strategy. And as she pointed out, efficiency for the HR team alone isn't necessarily enough of a justification for a business to invest in the talent management solutions that are required. That's the same with things such as employee data, which we know is always an issue within many organisations. But cleaning up that employee data alone, or providing a single view of the customer, of the employee, while that's important, alone may not be enough for the business to actually provide the budget that you need to implement some of those changes. So the only place that you can start with your business case, justifying the investment, is with the business strategy. So what I've got here is, from a justification point of view, when you're building that business case, there are a few key execution drivers that we see that really push forward that business case. So just at a very high level, these can be summed up into half a dozen different areas. And if you can answer one, or preferably more than one of these questions within your business case, you'll go a long way to actually getting that business case approved, that investment and that project underway to improve your system. So from an alignment point of view, crucially, how does the business strategies flow all the way down to what the employee does on a day-to-day basis, how you will align as an organisation. Productivity, of course, is important, and how can you increase productivity without increasing cost. Efficiency across the organisation, whilst HR efficiency alone may not be enough, if you can show how your investment across the entire organisation is going to help, then that will certainly aid you in getting your business case across the line. The ability to sustain that performance within an organisation, so sustainability, that's what we're talking about there, is very important, as is the ability to scale. So as the business grows, what strains is that going to put on the organisation from an HR perspective, and how can those barriers to growth be removed? And finally, HR will always play an important role in risk management, ensuring that security and compliance is being met and that the organisation isn't being exposed to any unnecessary risks. So I've just really whittled this down to a few examples of it. There's a few more slides within this pack that you can read at your own leisure, but I wanted to really focus in on some key areas, some key examples. So this example of how you can connect those execution drivers to a business strategy. In this case, it was an organisation that we were working with whose focus was changing from very much a product sales driven organisation to changing to more of a service oriented. So the business strategy was around increasing the margins and the amount of services they did rather than the volume-based sales that had previously driven the organisation, which required a significant cultural change, as you can imagine. So from an organisational perspective, that business case was really all built around the alignment of the organisation. How well is that change in strategy flowing down to the individuals in terms of their performance, how they're measured, how their behaviour is driven. And so putting forward a business case based on alignment to actualise this business strategy made perfect sense. Another example, growth. Even in the current economic conditions, organisations are always looking for ways to grow. As a strategic driver, entering new geographic markets, for example, would be one way that organisations can drive that growth. So from an HR leader's perspective, in this example, the focus was really on how the HR department supported that growth strategy by providing scalability around the ability to onboard new staff, recruit in new geographies, and do it all within a seamless process to enable the organisation to ramp up very quickly in new areas, in new regions. So when you're looking at these solutions, when you go out to market to have a look around and see what's out there, there's a few areas that are really a given, and these are the sorts of things that you have to address in your business case if you want to get it improved. So crucially, as Lisa pointed out, it's always has to be about outcomes. Vendors and partners such as ourselves in the past have fallen into the trap of hammering away at features and functions, and it's very easy to take those on as the key importance, but in fact it's all about the outcomes that those features and functions that solution actually provides. So a consistent framework, so making sure that everybody's working to the same processes, that the organisation across from employees all the way up to senior management are all understand what those processes are. That's an outcome that your system must meet as a bare minimum. An outcome of improving some of your performance and goals and learning and development in succession management areas, that the outcome of that is going to be improved retention, staff development, your staff learning the right things to be prepared for the right strategy. Executives, as you build your case, executives are always going to be of key importance to them, visibility. So they want to see at a very high level how their employee base, how their workforce is performing on an ongoing basis. They need metrics that can measure that, and they need a way to present it that makes sense to them, that can be consumed easily. So, which follows on to the next level in the cloud world. In the current technologies and moving forwards, a system that's easy to use, that's intuitive, that your employees actually enjoy using is a no-brainer, and those solutions exist now. Whereas in the past, perhaps it was a bit harder to get that user adoption with some of the solutions that were on the market. No longer the case. Your employees expect it and they demand a simple-to-use solution. So across the board, that covers an entire suite of areas for you to focus on, and which brings me on to the next stage. Taking a modular approach is actually very important. Linking each module to a strategy. So in this case, let's take the first example that I showed you where alignment was of crucial importance. So starting with the performance management solution that has analytics, mobility, and a core base of employee information to build on, but then being able to roll out further modular functionality as required. So, for example, moving on to managing remuneration and succession might be the next steps in that journey, and then all the way back to recruitment, onboarding and learning, all key areas that can be easily rolled out, sitting on top of a core HRIS information system. So just at a very high level, there's a few tips that I just wanted to mention from our experience of working with organisations across a range of industries and a range of sizes. Working with the vendor, you will normally have, before you build your business case, you will probably have been out and had a look around at what's available and come up with, at the very least, a short list of solutions that you think are going to meet your requirements. Actually getting information off those vendors can help you a huge amount. You don't have to necessarily take all their sales pitch, but you can take a huge amount of information. So SAP, for example, has a massive amount of resource available, research such as what Lisa presented today and much more that can help support that business case. The IT department in this day and age with cloud solutions, it is possible for the HR leaders and the HR departments to make independent decisions to deploy solutions quite quickly in a standalone fashion. But the IT department, at some point, you will want them to look at integrating, and you will want them to support your solutions. So involving them, they can have a lot to contribute to the whole discovery process and dealing with vendors, dealing with the requirements and defining those. They have a lot of experience that can help you build that business case. And before you actually present that business case, you should have built up some key executive sponsors. You don't want to be going into that room cold, presenting a request for budget without knowing exactly what the lay of the land is and where your support's going to come from. So those are just a few very quick tips and hints from what we have seen working in industries where they're in businesses where they're looking at some of these issues and building business cases. Hopefully it's been reasonably useful. One of the things, just to finish it off with a final call to action, I guess, is where can you start the journey? Well, Lisa's mentioned success factors. You've seen a few slides referring to it in this presentation. We deliver success factors here in New Zealand across the board. We're doing it for a number of mid to large size organisations and small ones as well, and have a range of options available. One of the options that we're currently offering is a rapid deployment solution. So that means that would enable organisations to get started quickly. So within the performance management, which we always see as being one of the core areas that organisations can focus on to deliver on these strategies, we're offering the performance management module and platform as a starting point with a 6-week implementation timeframe based on some pre-configured best practices, which ultimately will give you a predictable cost. So if you're interested in that, please do reach out and get in touch with us.